Hey, how you doing today? I am Tequila Coleman. In today's video, I want to talk about suppressing your anger. This was something that I was working on last night, and I began to pull out my book on forgiveness. The book is called Forgiveness: How to Make Peace with Your Past and Get On with Your Life. I will leave the link to the book in the description area. But I was just reading, I went to the chapter on the indignation stage, where it helps those of you who are stuck in this stage, of anger. It helps you to get unstuck, and moving forward. And so I want to just share a few things that I learned in this stage. Number one, well, let's start with indignation. Indignation means anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived as unfair treatment, right? And so one of the things that I noticed that I, was currently doing was suppressing my anger, right? And I discovered from reading a book that suppressed anger comes out in many self-destructive ways. And I kind of knew that, but it was like another eye opener last night as I continued to read. And I began to ask myself, well, why do you suppress your anger, Tequila? Right? I began to get curious, right? And I want you to get curious about why you suppress your anger as well. And I came to discover, because in the book, it says you may have labeled anger a bad feeling and learned to avoid it, right? And so I asked myself, well, what have I labeled my anger? Why do I suppress my anger, right? And I came to discover that the reason why I was suppressing my anger was because I labeled the anger that was in me as being seen as negative. Whenever I will express, the wrongdoing of the past, whenever I try to, confront a certain situation, I was always perceived as negative, right? And so without me even knowing it or even realizing it, it just communicated to me, whenever you express yourself, whenever you feeling angry and you try to express yourself, people are now going to perceive you as negative. So because I didn't want to be seen as negative, I suppressed the anger, right? Which is it's dangerous, okay? And we got to stop labeling people as being negative just because they are willing to confront a certain situation. Just because a person want to talk about the past and talk about, the hurt and pain of the past and how this individual made them feel, that doesn't mean this person is complaining. It doesn't make that person to be negative. It just simply means this person in that moment might be venting, needing a listening ear, right? Needed someone to be compassionate, right? And help them, work through this process, And so that was just one of the takeaways I got out of the book. I got more, but I want you to ask yourself, if you are someone who suppress your anger, why do you suppress your anger? What have you labeled anger to be for you? I want you to ask yourself these questions, okay? Because this is the work we must do in the divine separation. Okay, you have been, there are things that have been done to you during this divine separation, this God ordained love stance, that has caused you anger. And so now it's time for us to deal with this anger, release it, and move our lives forward. Okay. Now, another thing the book talked about is the anger we know, right? And the anger we know, it shows up in us shouting, kicking, or hitting. I don't do any of these things. It can show up in put down, name calling, hanging up the phone, slamming doors, throwing things, cursing, right? Making threats. This the anger we know. But let's talk about the passive aggressive anger, right? That seeps out of us, right? Because we are suppressing this anger. So the passive aggressive anger, it seeps out in sarcasm. It can seep out in showing up late, right? To the person, event who wronged you in the past, It could show up in put down, like the little humor put down. It could show up in, let me say, accidentally breaking things. Um, it can show up as looking through people instead of at them. It can show up in you not paying attention. It can show up in gossip, causing disturbance, embarrassing people, right? So we want to make sure, right, because we are aware of, you know, the anger, you know, our current anger, right? We are aware of how it shows up. But I also want you to be aware of the passive aggressive anger, okay? How does that show up, right? Does it show up in me being sarcastic? You know, does it show up in me talking about the situation, but it's in the way how I'm talking about it, you know, that lets other people know you haven't fully, you know, gotten over the situation, okay? So I'm looking over at my notes because I'm trying to find. So here are some ways on how we um you know, begin to move out of this indignation stage and just continue to move forward. So, number one, you want to discharge the anger, the angry energy, okay? Meaning you want to, you know, if you got to cry, cry. If you need to go for a walk, go for a walk. If you got, for me, I used to do kickboxing back in the day. And that was one of the ways how I used to release my anger. For you, it might be going for a brisk walk. It could be writing out your anger in a journal. Whatever the case may be, you want to discharge the angry energy. Number two, you want to look underneath the anger. Okay. Now this is coming out of the book, the book Forgiveness. Okay. Number two, look underneath the anger. So what's underneath it? How do you feel? Or do you feel hurt, sad, disappointed? You know, um, what else? Let me see. Do you feel frustrated? You know, look out underneath the anger and see what the anger is trying to tell you. Okay. What do you want or need right now? Okay. What are you hoping to achieve in the situation? Okay. These are some questions you want to ask yourself. And then number three, I want you to consciously decide what to do. Okay. So, what can you do to get what you want or need without hurting yourself or other people? Okay. Because anger comes about because you felt like you were mistreated, you were done wrong, right? And so one thing I have learned about anger and how, you know, it can help one to get over it and move forward is in the areas that I was mistreated in the areas where I was done wrong in, how can I now treat myself better? How can I make it up, you know, to myself? Because I can't wait for somebody else to come in my life and tell me they sorry or apologize or even admit to their wrongs. I may never get that. So how can I make it up to me? I can make it up to me by learning the lesson. I can make it up to me by, you know, removing myself out of that person's space. I can make it up to me by taking better care of myself, putting me first, you know, practicing self-love with me, right? So those are some of the things, you know, I wanted to talk to you all about. You know, it's time for us to release this anger, you know, the pent up anger, suppressed anger, right? And move into a better, just feeling better about ourselves and the situation. So that is it. I am Tequila Coleman. I'll talk to you all real soon. Take care.